This presentation is on the book called Triangle: The Fire That Changed America. The book focuses on the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. The Triangle Factory fire occurred on March 25, 1911. The significance of this fire was not the number of people who had died, but the reform of workplace safety that occurred afterwards. The Triangle Factory was essentially a densely packed sweatshop located on the 8th, 9th, and 10th floors of the Ash Building, which was located near the Washington Square Park in New York City. The factory was full of young immigrant women and girls who worked long hours and sat at long tables sewing shirtwaists. A shirtwaist was another term for a woman's blouse in those days. The picture on the left is of the owners, Max Blanc and Isaac Harris. They were the owners of the Triangle Factory. They were also nicknamed the Shirtwaist Kings. They had over 500 employees at the Triangle Waist Company, and it was considered one of the largest blouse-making operations in New York City at that time. The picture on the right shows the owner standing among some of the factory workers. About 60% of the factory workers were Eastern European Jews. Most of the rest came from Italy. Workers made as little as $3 a week, which barely covered enough for a room and board. Workers were constantly shortchanged on pay and mocked when they even complained for more money. The workers shaved minutes off the end of each lunch hour and even fixed the clocks to stretch each workday. At the end of the day, the workers had to line up at one exit to be searched like thieves to ensure they didn't steal a blouse, lace, or other materials. There were high levels of corruption in the garment industry and city government. The owners had pressured police to arrest workers on the picket line. They had also hired criminals to beat up the strikers. The International Ladies Garment Workers Union were workers in the women's clothing trade who led a strike in 1909, demanding higher pay and shorter and more predictable hours. The strike at the Triangle Factory helped cause the largest labor uprising the industry had ever seen. 40,000 workers, mostly women, had walked out of the waist shops. The actual fire had killed 146 workers, many because of the fire, smoke inhalation, or even jumping from the windows. The sources that I read could not say exactly how many people were at work that day because the factory was just too large. I wanted to give you a visual of the floors to show how many workers and rows of tables there were, to show how much debris there was to which blocked the exits and ways to get out of the building. So you can see the floors were crowded and people had to escape through areas blocked by machinery and flammable materials. The owners of the company or the factory were on the 10th floor and they were able to get out alive. Most of the people on the 10th floor were alerted and went to the roof. The fire marshal later concluded that someone had tossed a cigarette butt into a scrap bin. There were no sprinkler systems, so the fire had spread quickly. As you can see from this list, there were many issues that led to the deaths of the factory workers, such as 4 elevators in the building but only one was working, or the fire escapes were too narrow and ended up collapsing when the workers tried to escape, and about 24 workers had died from the flimsy fire escape when it collapsed. The fire started on the 8th floor and the firefighters could not reach above the 7th floor, and all the exit doors opened inward instead of outward. During the trial, it was said that the door to the stairway on the 9th floor had been locked, so a detective had 2 laborers search for the lock. They found the bolt within the ashes and the dust of the aftermath. The law at this time said that factory doors could not be kept locked during working hours, and doing so was a misdemeanor. However, many people died in this case because of the locked doors, so that would result in a manslaughter charge punishable up to 20 years. After the fire, the owners had gone back to work in a new factory and were later charged with 6 counts of manslaughter. They ended up getting the best attorney in town that money could buy because they were rich, and they were ultimately acquitted of the charges. Some of the changes that resulted in workplace safety reform in America were the Sullivan-Hoey Fire Prevention Law, which was passed and required sprinkler systems to be installed in all the factories. A committee on public safety was formed that led to new legislation. The New York State Legislature also created the Factory Investigating Commission. This commission conducted investigations into factory working conditions. They revised occupational safety and health codes, and the commission was the most thorough study of workers' safety and health up to this point. The commission also they ended up investigating over 3,000 workplaces and industries ranging from plants to bakeries to clothing manufacturers and other industries. The commission prompted 20 laws that provided stricter regulations and better public awareness of the problem. The author argued for the workers and their perspectives, and across many sources, the events were the same. This unfortunate event was a tipping point for a major change in workplace safety. The owners and city government were to blame for this terrible event because of their corruption and the owners knowing of certain issues that caused the deaths of the factory workers. These are my references, so leave a comment and I will respond to you. Thank you.